Okay, today was better. Controlling how many fast-paced trades that I did, I slowed down. I was able to look at the higher time charts, entering in trades, being more in control of it, and maintaining stop losses very tight. I did good with that, holding as long as I could for profit targets. However, I need more work on that. I think I did one that way, and then I got out early on a couple others, and it could have hit the second target, or the target, and I got out early, and I need to work on that. However, there's times like you'll see in one of these futures trades where you can just read the candles and you know it's not going to go, and you just got to take what you can take, and that's also very acceptable. Okay, so first let's talk about the futures trade that I did. I came in, and this is what the stock looked like on the S&P. Okay, it was coming up real high here, and I'm just going to move it real slowly here and let's see what happened. And I was looking for a trend line, and you could see this trend line right here that was coming up off of this pivot. I was looking for a trend line break on this, and it did right there. And it kept going. And I was like, man, if I was going for a momentum trade on that, I could have scalped that right there and rode my stop loss down on that. And I really like those trades. It's got to feel like the price is really moving sharply and swiftly, and you can tell, and you're watching it, and it's going fast. It's kind of like reading the tape, really, but you're watching the candle developments, real sharp. And I didn't take it, but I did circle it right there just so I can talk about it and think about it. I really wanted it to come back up. I wanted it to break the trend line. It got the trend line here. I wanted it to break and come back up and then give me some kind of, sign that it wanted to keep going down. And it never came back up, unfortunately. It just kept going down and down. Now let's see what it did. Eventually it got to a point where it got into this area here. And I drew a trend line down this way right here, coming down this way, and I was watching it develop. Okay, so let's go look at what I was watching. And it finally closed right here above that candle. And looks like that's where I entered my trade, my first trade. There's a little trade there. I put my stop loss. Where did I put my stop loss? Underneath. I think the first stop loss was way up here. That's the second stop loss or something. Let me move this out of the way. My first trade was right there on that green candle. My stop loss was right here underneath. And I was watching it go up. And it just simply did not go up enough. And it came back, and I broke even. Stopped out for break even. Okay. Now, I did get long again when it came back down. I'm pretty sure my thinking was that I was going to try to get it as close as I could to this pivot area and try to get in and use this pivot area as a stop loss. That way it would be a smallest possible stop loss that I could get. Because technically this is at 50% Fibonacci. We should back up for a minute here, because this big gigantic move here, this whole entire move right here, is basically retraced right back down to here, right here at 50%. That is the 50% line right there. And that's why I was actually so eager to take this trade. There was some other things too. I remember now. At that area, we're looking at some pivots here, way over here. You can see these pivots right here. This pivot and this pivot are all lining up, more or less right there in that 50% area right there where I'm taking that trade. So we had some pivots. We had a 50% line. And was it on a moving average as well? Let's take a look at that. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it was. We had this moving average also. If you could see that coming in here, it was right at the 50. This is the 50 moving average. The 50 EMA, exponential moving average. So we had a Fibonacci retracement, 50%. We had a line of pivots lining up, and we have a moving average. I put a lot of confidence in this trade. Because of those three things adding up together. Okay? Now, what happened here? I took another trade, and so you could see I took another trade right here. This is the second trade. Let's put that arrow right there on the second entry. And what happened on the first one? It came down, stopped me out for break even. I entered again as low as I possibly could, and I thought, okay, this candle looks good. It's going to keep going. It came back. I started raising my stop loss, raising it up, and I put it on break even. When it started to go up, I started to follow. And it came down and stopped me out for like one tick profit before it would have stopped me out. Both of these trades could have had the loss on it. So what I did see, though, was this test down below this box has been drawn for a reason. And in my pre-market preparation and all these charts, I have support and resistance zones. This is an area that it looks like it tried to break down. It came right back up, consolidated right here. This is a consolidation candle and went right back up. This was behaving in a very strong momentum behavior. So I literally was waiting for this breakout, and I don't do a lot of breakouts. As you can see, I waited for this to come down as low as possible. I bought low, waiting for it to spike up. And this time I actually do a breakout trade on this thing. Okay, so we go long on this thing right here. And I wait for it to go and hit my target. And it looks like all I was able to do was stop out. Look what it says in my notes. Stop out, break even for the third time. Boy, I wish I'd have took some of that profit somehow. You know, I just didn't have enough. I might have had 1-to-1 on it, but I was going for 2-to-1, and it came down so quick. This candle, these two candles came down so quick. And of course, my original stop loss, let's move it up, was right here underneath my entry candle. That candle spiked right up. I jumped in, had an order waiting, and it kept going. I kept bringing my stop up to the next candle, and it went up here, and I said, I'll keep it right here near break even. And let's see if it just keeps going up. If it does, I'll trail candle by candle. Unfortunately, it gapped up right here, and it had to come back and get that gap, and it never could recover from filling that gap in. So that was 3 break evens right there. And I didn't trade it all day. I did some stock trading. We did stocks as well. And I came back as I'm looking at to wrap up the day, and I notice this gigantic spike that spikes up right here, you know. And it's interesting, the bottom right here, what that looks like. What does that look like to you? It looks like one of my favorite patterns. I thought I had drawn that on here. Let's go look at it. And it's in a green area, which is a support area. Yep, these areas right here and this consolidation breakout here are all on top of this green area here. So they're all lining up together. But let's look at what that pattern looks like. And I'm sure you can see it now. It is one of my favorite patterns. Trying to sell off, consolidating, and then breaking out. Okay. Now, if I was here, I would have took that trade. And this is what I'm waiting for when I say trail my stop close. This is what I was hoping would happen. Now, see, if I would have gotten in on this trade right here, like I did on the last one, breaking out, here's the consolidation area, I would have had my stop loss probably underneath that candle, like I just did for the other trade that I stopped out on, right about here, the candle that I get in on, depends on which candle I get in on, and I would literally follow it up. Look at that. Probably I might have gotten stopped out. If I was brave enough to keep it here, I might have endured that. After I saw that reverse, I would definitely have moved it up here. And I would have, after it shot way up here, I probably would have didn't think it would keep going. I probably would have gotten stopped out up here somewhere. I more than likely would have gotten stopped out. I might not have caught all this. And that's part of my problem too. I need to learn that that's good enough for the little bit of risk that I had. You know, that's about 4-to-1. But, you know, there's a lot of things I need to work on. Figuring out how to, you know, stay back enough and let it rip. But I did not take that trade, but that's how I would have done that trade. The trade that I did take is up here. So we notice a big trend line. So we're drawing trend lines. There's another pivot. So I had to use that pivot, right? And it keeps going up, and we're waiting for it to tire out, right? And let's take a look at what happened here. So it finally broke that pivot right here. It starts breaking it, right? It starts breaking it. And I try to enter in. I want it to come back up. I want it to come back up. And it looks like I got in right here. Let's put this arrow right here. I got it in right there. I got in right there on the third candle down. It just kept going. I said, I got to catch this momentum. And it stopped right here. And I said, okay, my stop loss was at the top of that candle. Okay, my entry was right here. My stop loss was on top of that candle. And it went down to here. I could have got a 1-to-1 on it, but I wanted more. But unfortunately, when it got this far down, it created this little doji candle with a wick. I said, okay, maybe that wick is where it's not going to go down further. So I took my stop from where it was down to where I entered in. And sure enough, the next candle, this other wick candle that ended up going down, wicked up just enough to tick me out for my fourth break-even trade today. So I had not made any money, missed a great opportunity down here, and on my fourth trade, I break even on my futures again. However, the way this second wick, the one that stopped me out, acted, I saw the pintail. I saw it turning red. I decided to get in again. So I got in once here for break even. I got in again right here, but it was down here. I got in down there on the bottom, and I was hoping it would keep going right here, but it didn't, and I ended up taking a target. I got this much out of it. My stop loss was sliding down. It's almost 1-to-1. It's not, it hit 1-to-1. It hit more than 1-to-1. But when it started to go green and green, I got out right above that green candle, and good thing I did. So this was the only profitable trade I made today. Out of 5 trades, 4 break-evens, and 1 scalp. Okay, so that was my futures trade for today. Hopefully it will get better by the grace of God. All right, let's take a look at the Apple trade today. Apple was doing pretty good. A nice strong day up, actually. Kind of tricky when it's trying to break up through a descending 20 moving average, but for some reason it just looks pretty strong, and I bared with it through that. Also on the hourly chart, usually when something gaps up real strong into descending moving averages, that's a good sign for it to come back down. But also in the early part of it, it was only trying to push up through here. It was very daunting to see if it was going to push up through this resistance area from the last few days, up through the 20 on the hour daily chart, and then up through these moving averages, here, and it's underneath the 200 on the hourly chart. All right, so here we go with the 15-minute chart. You can see before this 15-minute candle closed, it was a little tiny, baby down here. Hasn't even gotten up there yet, and you're looking at this resistance going, man, I don't know if that's going to make it or not. So that's what I was facing. So why did I take the trade? Well, I took the trade based on the intraday charts here. This is the pre-market over here. Here's where the bell opened with the volume on the bottom, 930. First 5 minutes, we draw this box to give us the high and low of that. It broke out right here over the top of that first 5-minute range. Moving average is going up. 5-minute chart gaps up, gaps up here. And everything else on my radar was gapping up and looking strong. So I just took a chance on it. It's scary because it came back right here, and I guess that's probably 50% from the bottom. Let's take a look. Yeah, right at the 50% hot zone, the golden zone. Sure did. Hit that 50% and bounced right up. I don't even know if I paid attention to that. But I kept my stop down here under this pivot. Not the low of the day, but this pivot here. I figured if it was going to slam down that far, it deserved to get me. So after it started rolling up here, got back up and rolled over here, I just took my stop from this pivot down here and I moved it right here where you see this other red one. So that's where my stop loss was after that. And I think I just kept moving my stop loss up. Finally, it did some kind of spike. My target was right here because my stop was so far down. I had to get that much. And it did hit it. But the note for the day is I didn't wait for my target to get hit on this one and another one today, and it hit both of them. And it really, sometimes you feel like you got to do that, and sometimes it's a good idea to do that, but sometimes it goes right on up to your target. And so I like the trade. I like that we just held on as long as we possibly could. I wish I could have had a smaller stop loss, but you see this big drop that it did. If it was too tight, let's say if it was, let's see, where could I put it? I could have put it, underneath this candle here as it ignites off the 20 moving average, but what happened? This giant candle came right back down and slammed right into me. I probably would have had that entire loss, and then I would have tried to get back in over here and, barely had any profit after the loss. But again, my stop loss could have been tighter, though. I could have had my stop loss here. But yeah, I'm kind of trying to watch out for these snapbacks. And I'm glad I put it down here. I don't like, and you'll see some other trades I do today, I keep a very tight stop loss most of the time. But this was a good idea to give it some breathing room, and it worked out great. So that's the Apple trade. Alrighty, let's take a look at HUM. And I was really hoping I could short this today. And what happened was, let's take a look. It gapped down way down here, and it did nothing but go up. I was like, man, hopefully it'll give me a chance to short it, Even in the intraday, as low as it was, even in pre-market, it just trended up. As soon as the bell opens up, it just keeps on trending up, right? So it doesn't look back. Here's the 5-minute range on the opening, and it just, keeps on going. And so it was moving so slow. I didn't even know if it was open. It was so slow. I'm not used to that. I'm used to trading Tesla, NVIDIA, and this was just so slow. And I think I tried to short it right here using my trend line technique one time up in this area where there was resistance. Why not give it a shot? It peaks up over the top of it. It starts to turn red. I go short, of course. And then I keep my stop loss pretty tight, and it stops me out. You see, as soon as it broke below the 8 moving average, below this structure, and started to push down, I go short, and it came up and stopped me out. And I almost got back in right here, but I just said, you know what? The behavior of this thing going up like this, I'm not going to chance it. And I'm glad I didn't, because it didn't. It just kept on going, man. So HUM, I didn't like the way the stock price was moving. It was very, very weird for me. I don't trade stocks like that, but I never got the short, and it was a little bit of a little tiny loss on that one, right? All right, NVIDIA is next, and this thing's been on just a tear, all-time highs, breaking records, you name it. Here's the day. Very interesting day. It started off kind of slow, and it actually broke below its opening 5-minute range. So let's take a look at that. This big dip right here that it did right here in the hourly chart, basically just kind of closing the gap from yesterday. That's all it was. And if I was here, I would have probably tried to play that. Okay, the close of the day was right up in this area right here. Let's put this right here. Let's see where it came. It never came down to the close of the day, did it? Nope. So it would be very hard to play that if it didn't come down into the close. There's a possibility that we would have seen some other structures. Maybe there's the close of the previous day right there, and price only came down to, well, let's take a look at it and make sure know what we're talking about here. Yeah, it didn't come down all the way. You know, is there a way we could have played that? Well, if I would have noticed on the hourly chart it bouncing off of, you know, the 20 moving average coming into the pivots? Let's see what the 15-minute chart shows us in that area. You know, it's definitely worth a try. It did come into the pivots right here, these pivot areas. So a lot of times I'll, draw a structure like this just to let me know it's an area that I need to be looking out for. So we have an area of interest, and that means that when it came down into this area, what's this dashed line? This is obviously something important here. Okay, it was some intraday pivot right there. Okay, so that would have been a place for me to be watching. It definitely would have been. It's got one of my important intraday pre and post market lines on it. So where is it? Right there. Let's go ahead and draw that on there. It's right there, all the way down to these pivots. So this whole area would have been an area of interest for me, and I would have been on high alert looking for candle patterns and trend line breaks, and to see if we could get a trade. So let's observe this. The strong move down right here, I would have been on it. I probably would have been using a trend line technique at first. Let's take a look at that. Let's see what we have with the trend line technique. The sharper the move down, the more the angle of the trend line will be. We keep looking for trend line breaks, so we get it right down here. I would probably, oh, this is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, because when it finally broke, you could try to enter in on that. You'd put your stop loss underneath this pivot. That's one way of doing it, where you literally just take that first candle and whatever green, it didn't close very strongly over that, so I probably wouldn't have done it. So I definitely would have taken a trade over here on the breakout, though. I'm pretty sure I know me. And once it broke out over here somewhere, I'd have been very interested in taking that and using one of these pivots right here as my stop loss. One of these two pivots was my stop loss right there. Problem is it's going up on low volume down here. But this candle would have been my target candle. No other candle like that on the way down. And in that area, we noticed that, you remember, we're in an area. We're in an area of interest. So that box, I would have probably, while I'm waiting for it to come down, I probably would have already drawn this box. We already had it right here. So let's pull it over and see where that's at on that pivot, right? Let's draw it all the way over across to here, and you can see that it is in that pivot area. Where's it at? Well, pre and post market pivot here, coming up right there. Pre and post market pivot here, right? And that's it. All right, and it took off right from that area when the bell rang. Okay, comes all the way down into where it really just spiked up into that area. Okay, so what we need to do is go in here and look at this, see that reversal pattern, see how that played out. And let me see if I can get over there right here. Let's take a look at this. Let's look at that again. Yeah, you get that candle formation, and it is beautiful. You got the entry area. As soon as it breaks out, you got the retest of the trend line, you got the consolidation, and you got the breakout. That's just textbook, man. Textbook into an area that we've already determined to be an area of interest. You can see it on the 15-minute chart. We could see it on the 5-minute chart. And let's see, the hourly chart, I don't really have it drawn out yet, but you see the close, how close it came to the close of the day. I would have been watching that like a leopard. Trust me. I didn't see it. I would have been watching it. I did not catch that trade. Okay, but I did catch some trades on it. So let's talk about the ones that I did trade with NVIDIA. Okay, let's take a look at it here. Here's the minute chart. 5-minute range, this box right here, the high and low of the 5 minutes, it started to break out over the top of it, and then it just sort of continued to drift down. If I had a trend line technique ready, I probably could have shorted that. Absolutely, I missed that as well. How would that technique work? How the trend line technique? I'd be looking for a break over, a down to the downside, and we get that red candle right here. Of course, it goes up and tests it, and this is really the best way to trade it. Not just on a simple break. Sometimes it'll break and keep going, and it won't come test. It won't come and consolidate. It won't go sideways. It just breaks, and that's more risky and harder to really trust, because you don't want to get it too low, and it goes fast usually. But here's the retest, retest. It goes back up, and you can tell it's drifting down, and then you get this big whipping candle down and another pintail down, and certainly somewhere in here we could have had our stop losses and just slowly try to work that out. I didn't get that. What I did get was it coming back down to the bottom of the day, that it broke it eventually, but this was the low of the day at one point, and put in this beautiful doji hammer looking candle right here. I mean, look at that little pintail, man. So I watch it go sideways. I do a trend line technique this way. It breaks it with an unconvincing candle, but I go long anyway because I like this candle and I like it at the bottom of the 5-minute range. And I used the bottom of that for my stop loss at first. And I'm pretty sure I did. It's quite possible I would have had my stop loss. I think I did have my stop loss here. It looks like it because I have this drawn. And it almost got me. I remember this trade now. Yeah, it was like one tick away from getting me, and I had my stop loss too close. Yeah, it was a very close call on that. I probably would have got long on it again here, right here on this candle breakout here. But we held it, and I almost had 3x reward up here, 3R, and it just comes down, and I think I got more than one, maybe one. It's too bad that I didn't capture that. Really missed. I don't know why. I wasn't paying attention, and I didn't get it. But it was a reward nonetheless. Then I tried this little, I don't know. I was trying to bounce it up here, and it just went down past this pivot and stopped me out for a little tiny loss. And then it kept going. I was like, oh, good. I'm glad I got out of this. Look at this red candle right here. It was going up, and it just whipped right down real fast. And then we have a doji and a lower high. Okay, this is going to keep going. I'm glad I got out of this. I'm glad I got out of this. And then all of a sudden, you have to watch it in real time. These candles just come up so fast that I just jump in it. And this is one of my momentum trades. I didn't even wait for the breakout right here. Okay. I think I used this candle down here as my stop loss. So let's borrow from this. My stop loss was right here, because if it wasn't, I'd have been stopped out on this candle. I would have been stopped out on that candle. But it was a little lower. I said, you know what? Let me use this one here. This is the breakout one from this trend line down this way. This is the one that really did violent. This next one that I got in on, I got in right after that. It didn't go anywhere, and I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's going to stop me out here. And fortunately, I don't even know if it did a 50% pullback on that or not. Let's take a look. Nope, not quite. And it just kept going. And here, I think here again, I got out too early because it missed my target. Right up here is my target, and I got out right here. So I was glad to make something on it. But again, I think because it went red right here, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to break even on this. I break even on a lot of trades. Break even is the way to go, because when one makes it, you're hitting a home run. And okay, so that was good. Probably could have got a trend line trade going back up, and various topping here. Pretty much could have got a trend line trade going back this way. And I missed that big, beautiful move down here. I didn't trade it for the rest of the day. And we already went over that trade down here that we would have taken and how we would have worked it out. Okay, here's my SPY trade. I can definitely say this is the one trade today that I was not thinking clearly on. and I was trying to short SPY. Let's take a look at the day. It gaps up and starts to come back down to the close. I don't think it actually went all the way to the close. Almost, but came close. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, it almost went to the close, but not really. Anyway, it started breaking below the 200 moving average. And I wanted to short it. Okay, so here's the 1 minute candles. Okay, here's the 5 minute up and high, the high and low of the first 5 minutes. And it broke below that. And I don't know. At the time, these wicks and the way it went down seemed to be a reasonable trade. Don't ask me why I stopped out so high. I guess I didn't have a choice because, these wicks are so whippy. I'm not happy with this trade. If I would have noticed, I think it was trying to break down or something over here. What was the candle that I got in on? 954. Yeah, this was. Oh, these are 2 minute candles. These are 2 minutes. So this is like 50. Yeah, it was starting to break below the 200. I thought it was going to fall down and try to fill this gap here. Like it came down over here, trying to hit this gap. And it gapped up so high, it was turning red. And it was falling below the 200. And when it went below the 200, I didn't wait for these 5 minute candles to close. I was noticing the 2 minute candles were closing, and I jumped into short, and it just whipped back up. Okay. First 15 minutes. Okay, yeah, on this candle, this is the second 15-minute candle here. See that green one there? It was turning red, and it was going underneath the 200 moving average. That was my thinking. That was my thinking. And it could have just as easily worked. Right here, it's just in between so many moving averages, and it gapped up into this trend line and started turning red. I said it gapped up into the trend line. It's going to go back down. It's definitely going to at least go a little bit. And it did over here, though. And on top of the moving average, our trend line, not underneath it. So that was just, I don't know. I don't think that I saw that and put 2 and 2 together on it. So I'm not happy with that trade. At the time, my stop loss seemed like it was in the right spot because it whipped up right here on this candle. It whipped up right there, and it missed me. So yeah, my stop loss, and then it went red and started going down. I said, haha, I was so smart. And then sure enough, it came right back up and stopped me out. Very choppy SPY, and did not do good on that one at all. The TQQQ is I think it was a bad trade, and I got out of it real quickly. I literally made a note, closed it due to resistance. I jumped in it as it started breaking out over. This is not a good idea. A lot of times I like to retest the 5 minute breakout, or at least consolidate, or at least, I don't know. It looked like it was a strong move up here, and it just fizzled out. But then once I jumped in and I looked at everything else, let's take a look at the hourly chart here. And it was just jumping into first hour candle right here. It hadn't even gotten anywhere near, this resistance, clearing this resistance up here. So here's all the resistance. The first hour was trying to get up over the top of that. And it ended up failing under the low of that day, the previous early part of the day. And here on the 15-minute chart, same thing. This box represents all that resistance. I got in at the tip top of that, and it went below the low of that candle. That would have really been my stop out. So here's the resistance on the 5 minute chart. When I saw that, I said, you know what? I'm not even gonna wait. I'm not even gonna hope. I'm not even gonna try to stay in this trade. I should not have taken this trade, right? So that was my thinking, and why I got my stop loss was right under here. And yes, I would have gotten a bigger loss on that, saved myself about 2/3 of that loss. And I just realized that was a mistake, and I got out. So the SPY trade and the TQQQs, these are the sloppy, reckless trades that I made today. All right, everything else seemed to be working pretty good. Let's take a look at my last trade, which is Tesla. Okay, let's take a look at Tesla here. Tesla has just been simply going down and down, trying to bounce, trying to find some support on the daily chart right here. Put in kind of like a hammer yesterday. Had a day, 2 days ago, it was a strong bounce too, but it is making lower highs each time. So let's go over to the hourly chart today and see what the heck happened. Let's take a look at that real quick. Here it is, gapped up into the descending 20 and just came down, just kept coming down. A nice drop, really. 15-minute chart here. Let's take a look at it. Yep, went up into the descending moving average. That's what I'm talking about when price gaps up into descending moving averages. Usually, that's why I went short on the SPY anyway, or whatever one it was. Because of that reason, a lot of times that's exactly what will happen. Okay, and it was a nice drop. It really looked good. Here it is, it's beautiful. If I was shorting it, I would have really liked to trade that, but I'm not. I'm actually swinging it to the long side. So I'm adding to the bounce areas for the long picture. Anyway, the point is, here's the intraday 1-minute chart. I start drawing trend lines from as high up as I can in different angles and all this stuff. And we're going to look at this on a different video, looking at the trend line possibilities. And I actually was fortunate enough to actually catch this down here with all these different angles and trend lines. There's the one in particular that I had drawn, which was this one, that I used to enter my trade. So let's make it real thick here so we know which one we're talking about. Let's turn it yellow, and then we can see what the thinking was behind that. All right, let's go here. So what happened was it starts to go sideways. It starts to put in this kind of W pattern. I don't know if you can see it or not. Let's take a look at that right quick. I see the sell-off, the bounce, the sell-off, the bounce, the sell-off. And to me, I like that candle right there, but the consolidation area right here, and then of course it breaks out to the upside. So that's the pattern that I'm looking for usually. And to me, I saw it with my eyes and I was like, okay, this, I need to get in this. I need to do something. All right. So I put my stop loss at the bottom and as tight as I could. And I get in. I don't wait really for it to go up, because I think I was looking at, is it on support level somewhere? Are we looking at some support somewhere on the higher time charts? Because you really need a reason to think that it's going to, bounce. And I don't know. Let's take a look at the hourly chart here and see what my reasons might have been other than the pattern structure. It's at the top of this range here. Probably is at the box area with the wick. Yeah, these wicks. I think that's why I did that. Let's take a look at that. Is that what it went into? Yeah, it tipped right into it. Tipped right into it, bud. So yeah, it did go into that box. Barely, though. Barely, like that right there. Okay. I think for me, I was more interested in the pattern, and I wanted to trade that pattern and give it a try. So I did, and it worked out. So I just kept raising my stop loss up as it went up, and it did hit a target for me, and I got out. I went to break even as soon as it started going up, and eventually I went here, and eventually I went here. I got out. And this is one of that momentum again. I think it broke this trend line right here, and I was looking for a strong move up, and it did. And boy, did I get in late, unfortunately. And I didn't stay in. This could have been a beautiful move. I tried to get in earlier. It just went so fast. I think I kept my stop loss down here underneath this candle, this breakout candle. And eventually I moved it here. It went up here. As soon as it looked like it was going up, I said, okay, I need to break even on this. I got in late. I don't want to have a loss on this trade, especially when it was not a good entry. You get in late, you got to be careful. And it basically broke me even because the red candle came down, snapped into there before it kept going. Man, I wish I would have done this better. I wish I could have got in at a lower price. I might have not been so nervous. I like that I took these trades. I just wish this one was in earlier. All right, so that's all my trades today. We did have a positive day today, and hopefully by the grace of God, we'll get better and better. Peace.